Dark screen. Static hum. Then a trembling, alien voice. Alien Envoy voiceover. They told us the humans were gone. That their world was ash. That we had won. Silence. Then a deep human voice, calm, broken, terrifying. Kale voiceover. We didn't die. We just waited until we were broken enough to remember everything. Static cuts to a flickering galactic map, entire systems marked in red. When humans break, even the gods shudder. Cut to black. The silence in the grand convocation chamber wasn't sacred, it was terrified. 1,000 beings, cloaked in gold, chitin, plasma, and psionic veils, hovered in calculated formation above a translucent floor of living crystal. Beneath them, the stars of 10 systems shimmered, as if eavesdropping. The chamber pulsed with quiet dread, the kind that clings to old ruins and long-forgotten war zones. At the center, a projection blinked, grainy, corrupted, low bandwidth. The kind no one had seen in 2 centuries. Then it spoke. When we break, you'll feel it in your temples. A simple voice. Human. Male. Calm. But in that calm, galaxies cracked. High Seer Thalzaruan's mandibles twitched, iridescent blue eyes narrowing. His tented fingers pressed together in prayer, not out of reverence, but as a reflexive shield. Trace the signal, he ordered. We can't, answered Archivist Veilthranus, her voice hushed. It came from the rift. No known relay stations exist there. The rift, no one spoke of it casually. It was a tear in real space where time folded in on itself, where ghosts of old wars screamed through vacuum and wreckage spun in slow, dying spirals. Thalzaruan rose, his ceremonial silks whispering against the polished obsidian dais. This is not possible, he said, voice like cracked stone. Commander Roan Kale Veltrax is dead. His species, extinguished. Their world is quarantined. Their archives purged. We saw to it. Veilthranus glanced toward the projections still flickering above the dais. A human silhouette stood amidst a blizzard of static. No weapons. No threats. Just the voice. I cross-referenced the signature with the Black Sun records, she said carefully. It matches. Identical. This isn't mimicry. It's him. Gasps rippled. Across the chamber, ancient races with names that once ruled stars whispered a single word. Human. It sounded old. Mythic. Profane. Thalzaruan waved the projection away. Begin Theta Protocol. Alert Fleet Theta Prime. Scramble psychic interceptors and emotional dampeners. If he still breathes, bring him to me. If he resists, erase the anomaly. The order dropped like a blade. Motion resumed. Delegates disconnected. Alerts flared across systems. Far beyond the edge of the Concord, where gravity frayed and light bent sideways, a ship emerged from the rift. Not sleek. Not regal. A blackened relic of Terran warfare, scarred and silent. Inside, Commander Roan Kale Veltrax sat cross-legged on the cold floor, staring at nothing. He wore no armor. Just a tattered jacket, once navy blue, now blood-shadowed and scorched at the seams. His beard was unkempt, eyes glassy with sleepless purpose. He looked more monk than soldier, until he blinked, and the pain behind his gaze made stars seem fragile. A quiet voice crackled beside him. Female. Digital. Tired. Kale. You shouldn't have transmitted. They'll come now. I want them to. They'll erase you. Again. Kale smirked without warmth. Let them try. This time, I'm not the only memory left. He rose and stepped toward the console, laying a single hand on the metal. It pulsed faintly beneath his touch, alive with something old. Your vitals are unstable. The voice, Echo One, murmured. I'm unstable, he replied. That's the point. He opened a compartment and retrieved a small, obsidian cube etched in ancient Terran scripture. He whispered to it. Not code. A name. Lena. The cube hummed. A child's laughter echoed for half a second, just enough to hurt. He tucked it into a compartment over his heart. On Idren Prime, the heart of the celestial concord, Fleet Theta Prime was already en route. Dozens of dreadnoughts, each larger than a city, each carrying weapons designed to suppress emotion itself. Kale's name spread faster than their warp drives. In academies, professors locked away historical records. In temples, priests rewrote sermons. In dark rooms, old soldiers trembled at names they thought buried with earth. Kale stared through his ship's viewport. The rift roiled behind him like a storm mourning its own rage. Echo One broke the silence. "You've been waiting 200 years to speak. What now?" Kale didn't answer right away. He was watching the stars, the same way ancient mariners once watched the horizon for enemy sails. "I don't need revenge," he said softly. "I need them to understand what they did when they called us extinct. What they buried. They buried our memories." He nodded. "And I'm going to dig them up." Meanwhile, aboard the lead Concord dreadnought, Admiral Thevrak entered the briefing chamber, brows furrowed. "Status?" he asked. Lieutenant Kazri tapped her interface, frowning. "The human ship has not deviated. No signals. No shields. No resistance. It's broadcasting coordinates." Thevrak tilted his head. "A trap? Unknown. He's just waiting." The Admiral turned to his crew. "Prepare to capture the anomaly. Full psionic dampeners. Emotion scrub units online. We are not fighting a soldier. We are silencing a myth." But deep down, Thevrak knew. Myths don't go silent. They echo. Forever. And far in the distance, Kale whispered into the silence again. "When we break, you'll hear it in your temples." This time, the stars seemed to flinch. He didn't resist. The Concord fleet surrounded Kale's ship like wolves circling a wounded beast. Warships hovered in calculated silence, weapons charged, emotion-dampening fields active. No demands were issued. No threats. Just a single transmission request. Kale accepted it. "Surrender and disarm," a Concord officer commanded. Kale responded with a slow nod and a whisper. "I'm already disarmed." When the boarding team arrived, they found him seated in the center of the ship, legs crossed, hands open, eyes calm. He didn't blink. Didn't move. Only watched them like someone waiting for a verdict he already knew. They shackled him in psionic cuffs, standard issue for emotional species. The lead enforcer, a Koran named Elth, activated the suppression field. It pulsed blue and sterile. Kale winced, only slightly. "You feel that, human?" Elth asked, almost smug. "That's peace. No hate. No grief. No madness." Kale turned his head slowly, voice even. "Is that what you call it?" Elth said nothing. They escorted Kale through the cold metallic halls of the dreadnought Vigilant Thought, a ship designed not to destroy, but to sterilize. Every wall hummed with low-frequency denial. No color. No art. Just silence. Kale walked without resistance, his boots echoing between soldiers who looked everywhere but at him. They locked him in a containment chamber built for psionic instability, 4 walls of emotion-canceling material, a chair, and a single surveillance node embedded in the ceiling. Still, Kale smiled. The cell hummed. And in that hum, he whispered to the small embedded chip in his jacket collar. "Echo One. You there?" A soft crackle. Then her voice, digitized, weary, warm. "I told you not to get caught." "I didn't." "Then what do you call this?" "An invitation." Outside the cell, Admiral Thevrak watched from the observation deck. "He just sits there," said Kazri, frowning. "Vitals normal. No signs of neuroresistance. It's like, he wants to be here." Thevrak narrowed his gaze. "Put him through the psychological screening. Low-level emotional probes only. Don't risk overexposure." She hesitated. "Sir, he's—" "Do it." Inside the cell, Kale sat with his hands resting loosely in his lap. Then it came, a light pressure behind the eyes. The probe. He didn't resist. Instead, he opened his mind. The surveillance team flinched. One of them gasped. Another recoiled. A third fell from his chair, convulsing with tears. "Cut the feed! Cut it now!" someone screamed. But it was too late. They had seen. A child's laugh dissolving into screams. A battlefield with no sky, only ash and flame and hands reaching for help that never came. A lover's final breath, soft, rasping, followed by silence that never ended. And through it all, Cale's face. Watching. Absorbing. Refusing to look away. Alarms blared across the command deck. The emotional stabilizers overloaded. Personnel staggered from their stations, some whispering apologies to people long dead. Others sat in silence, trembling. Cale stood in his cell. Not angry. Not triumphant. Just awake. In the control room, Thevrak gritted his teeth. How did he breach containment? Kazri stared at the data stream, voice cracking. He didn't. We let him in. Shut it down, Thevrak snapped. No more contact. Full neural dampening. Strip everything. Kill his link. Kazri swallowed. Sir, that might kill him. I'm counting on it. Back in the cell, the hum sharpened. The walls glowed with pulse inhibitors. Cale exhaled slowly, fingers twitching. They're trying to kill you, Echo One whispered. They won't. You're not immortal. I'm worse, he murmured. I remember. He reached up, pressed his fingers against the collar node, and said 2 words. Play Lena. The projection activated. It wasn't visual. Just sound. A child giggling, followed by humming, off-key, innocent. It drifted through the cell walls. And into the crew. One by one, soldiers froze. The sound pierced the suppression fields like a knife. Some fell to their knees. Others collapsed entirely. The vigilant thought, a fortress against chaos, trembled. Cale walked through the open cell door, cuffs still on. No guard stopped him. They couldn't move. Couldn't breathe beneath the weight of a forgotten human lullaby. He reached the main deck. The door slid open before him, automatic systems confused by the collapse of hierarchy. Admiral Thevrak stood alone, weapon in hand. The only one left who hadn't broken. You're a disease, he said, voice low. Cale tilted his head. No. I'm a mirror. I should kill you. Then do it. Thevrak raised his weapon. But his hand shook. He saw it, Cale's eyes. Not defiant. Not pleading. Just full. Full of everything they'd purged from the galaxy: sorrow, rage, love, loss. The weapon lowered. Cale stepped past him. 30 minutes later, Cale stood on the observation deck of the Vigilant Thought. The crew remained unconscious or in catatonic silence. Cale activated a single beacon transmission. It read, Containment failed. Memory breaches spreading. I am awake. You taught the galaxy to forget. I've come to teach it how to remember. He shut off the transmitter and turned toward the stars. Echo One, he said softly. Yes? Set course for Idren Prime. You're going straight to the archive? They erased our name there. Time to carve it into the walls. And after? Cale's lips twitched, almost a smile. After? I speak. Idren Prime glittered like a sanctified wound in the sky, impossibly massive, suspended in orbit above a pale white dwarf. Its spires twisted into the void, glowing with the Concorde's synthetic serenity. The temple archive sat at the heart of it all, guarded by doctrine and psionic shields. Nothing got in without permission. Nothing unauthorized ever left. Cale arrived uninvited. The Vigilant Thought descended through the planet's upper atmosphere. Its crew, still silent and unresponsive, had been left behind in escape pods, drifting toward automated recovery beacons. No one had resisted. He walked alone now. The spaceport security system tried to deny him entry, but Echo One whispered past firewalls like a ghost with keys. Doors opened. Scanners blinked. Nobody spoke. Nobody dared. Inside the archive, thousands of species once gathered to shape the official history of the galaxy. What remained now were keepers, clerics, scholars, and digital custodians bound to one law: preserve truth by controlling memory. Kale stepped through the marble archway of the central atrium, his boots tapping over white crystal. Murals lined the walls, sanitized depictions of events long disfigured. There were no humans among them. Just golden victories, erased genocides, and rewritten mercy. He stopped at the central terminal, a rotating cube of light containing every redacted timeline. Dozens of Concord officials turned toward him in frozen disbelief. One archivist, a feathered, four-eyed Frin, stood and spoke, voice thin. "You're not authorized to be here," Kale replied evenly. "Neither was Extinction." Gasps. A few reached for security relays. Echo 1 disabled them all. The lights dimmed. The air shifted. In a council chamber below, Thalzaruan's eyes twitched as alarms flashed on his display. A breach. Not just physical, informational. Emotional resonance levels were spiking across the archive's grid. "Impossible," he muttered. "He should have been suppressed." An aide stumbled into the room, trembling. "He accessed the memory vault. Sir, the restricted files, he's releasing them." "What files?" "Everything. Earth. Project Hollow Valor. The Final Silence. All of it." Thalzaruan stood in horror. "No," he whispered. "He's not here to kill us. He's here to make the galaxy feel." Back in the atrium, Kale placed his hand on the terminal. The cube flared red. Unauthorized input. Biometric mismatch. Still, it responded. Echo 1 fed the archive coordinates and triggers tied to buried Terran data caches, material the Concord had scrubbed, encrypted, sealed, and classified as myth. Memories flowed into the air like spilled ink. A hologram flickered to life, grainy footage of a mother cradling her son during the Terran collapse. Another, a soldier refusing evacuation to save civilians. A couple holding each other, as the sky cracked open above them. The archive's clerics collapsed to their knees. Not from pain, but recognition. One whispered, "Why would you show us this?" Kale's voice was low but clear. "Because you were taught to forget. We weren't." On Idrin Prime's surface, emotional pulses radiated outward, touching systems, vessels, satellites. The ripple was immediate. Pilots abandoned patrols, overcome by visions of a past they'd never lived. Diplomats wept in transit hubs, unsure why. Children began dreaming of oceans and fires and lullabies in a language they didn't speak. Every Concord node that had filtered emotion began to burn out. The Concord called it a psychic contagion. Kale called it memory. Thalzaruan initiated emergency override. He stormed into the archive atrium flanked by elite psionic guards, their minds shielded by implants. He spotted Kale standing amid the swirling images. "You're desecrating sacred ground," Thal hissed. Kale didn't turn. "No. I'm cleaning it. History is curated. Filtered for balance. This chaos is truth. And it doesn't care about your balance." The guards moved. Kale raised a small sphere from his coat. Not a bomb. A recording. He activated it. A sound played, soft, fragile. A young voice. A boy maybe 10 years old. "Dad? If you come back, can we go to the lake again?" The words cracked. "I don't care if the sky's broken. I just want to hear you laugh." The guards froze mid-step. One dropped his weapon. Another staggered back, hands shaking. Kale turned at last, eyes locked with Thalzaruan. "I didn't come to fight," he said. "I came to show you what you buried, what you stole. We never wanted to conquer you. We only wanted to be remembered." Thal's voice trembled. "You're trying to infect the galaxy with grief." "No. I'm freeing it from apathy." Thal lunged. Kale didn't flinch. Before the seer reached him, his knees buckled. Not from impact, but from a surge of memory forced into his implants. He saw Earth, not the ruins, but the joy. The resilience. The fire. He saw humans dancing beneath crumbling skies. Singing. Embracing. He saw what had been denied. And it broke him. Cale caught him before he hit the floor. You erased us from history, he whispered. But we didn't die. We became story. And stories spread. Thal struggled to speak. What are you? Cale looked to the archive, now glowing with unfiltered memories spilling into the stars. I'm what happens when forgetting fails. In orbit, the Concorde broadcast network collapsed. Emotional containment was no longer possible. Entire systems lit up in psychic echoes. Some screamed. Some rejoiced. All remembered. Across the galaxy, shrines to the past began to form. And on Idran Prime, the archive no longer sanitized history. It bled. The inner sanctum of the temple archive was never meant to echo. Sound, emotion, memory, everything was engineered for stillness. Walls of psionically sterilized alloy absorbed thought. Statues of dead councils lined the perimeter, carved from lightless stone. This was where histories were rewritten and species quietly erased. But now it echoed. Footsteps. Just one pair. Cale walked the center path toward the core nexus, where the minds of the Concorde's oldest memory curators, living and digital, once converged. The lights flickered overhead, flickers syncing with the pulse of something waking. The doors at the end opened without resistance. Inside, High Seer Thalzaruan waited. He looked worse than before, posture tight, skin mottled with neurostatic feedback, the seams of his ceremonial armor half burnt from the overload Cale's memory surge had caused. But he stood. Cale didn't stop. You've corrupted the archive, Thal said, voice brittle. I've revealed it, Cale replied. There are rules. And you broke them when you erased us. The seer raised a hand. His palm pulsed with psionic light, but he didn't strike. Not yet. You don't understand what you're doing. Cale tilted his head. Then explain it. Explain how peace required lies. Explain how grief became criminal. Because your kind didn't stop. Thal snapped. You clung to loss like it gave you purpose. It did, Cale said softly. Thal's energy flared. Lightning sparked between his fingertips. You're destabilizing entire civilizations. They can't handle it. The emotions. The weight. Maybe they shouldn't have built a galaxy that needed forgetting to survive. I gave them order. Cale stepped closer. You gave them numbness. The seer's hand twitched, then lowered. For a moment neither spoke. Then Cale reached into his coat and pulled out a sphere, unremarkable at first glance. But Thal's breath caught when he saw the glow inside. That's Project Hollow Valor's final shard, Cale said. It holds every moment the Concorde tried to erase. A backup of a species. Every death. Every choice. Every smile. Even the ones you thought didn't matter. I'll destroy it. You'll try. Thal lunged. Cale didn't block. The blow struck his shoulder, psionic energy flared, but Cale stood his ground. The shard rolled from his hand, clinking against the floor, stopping between them. Thal prepared another strike, then faltered. From the shard, a voice leaked out, female, human, older. Don't forget your shoes, love. And if the stars fall, come home. The seer froze. Cale watched him closely. You recognize her? Thal said nothing. She was one of yours, Cale whispered. Before you were seer. Before you were Concorde. She was someone. She died, Thal muttered. Before Ascension. No. You buried her. Like everything else. The shard glowed brighter, projecting a brief image, a woman brushing windblown hair from her face, smiling toward the recording device. Then the smile faded. You promised not to forget. I believed you. The image vanished. Thal collapsed to one knee. I didn't know it was still in me, he breathed. Cale knelt across from him. That's the problem. You were taught to unfeel. The seer looked up. His voice trembled. How do you carry all of it and still breathe? Kale didn't hesitate. You don't. You carry it because you can't breathe. Above the chamber, in orbit, Concorde systems continued to fail. Emotional inhibitors crashed. Propaganda feeds shattered. New broadcasts rose in their place, unedited memories Kale had unleashed. In a mining colony on Virex 3, workers stopped mid-drill, falling to their knees as visions overtook them, a Terran battlefield, soldiers dragging wounded comrades through flame. On a leisure station over Zeker Delta, a group of scholars listened to the voice of a dying mother lullabying her child under collapsing concrete. None of them moved until the message ended. They wept openly. No one stopped them. Back in the archive, Fel sat slumped against the wall, eyes distant. Kale stood, retrieved the shard. You said we were dangerous, he said quietly. You were right. We are. Because we don't stop loving, even when it breaks us. The seer looked up. What happens now? Kale turned to the Nexus console and placed the shard in its core slot. It accepted it. Files unfolded. Banned histories. Forgotten cultures. Extinct dialects. Earth's memory, unfiltered, raw, human. You can't force them to remember, Val said. I don't need to, Kale replied. They're already dreaming of us. Kale activated the memoriam pulse. It was quiet. No flash. No sound. Just a signal, a pulse of memory, coded into the galactic relay systems. Every species, every station, every archive connected to Concorde infrastructure received it. Not a virus. A mirror. And in that reflection they saw humans. Not as monsters. Not as myths. But as themselves. Flawed. Feeling. Endlessly breaking, and endlessly standing up again. Thal pressed his forehead against his knees. Are we all going to fall apart? Kale looked down at him, then turned toward the door. No, he said. But now you'll know how we felt when we did. Years passed. The Concorde fell, not with fire, but with silence. Not one great collapse, but 1,000 tiny fractures spreading thought by thought. Their empire, built on numbness and curated calm, could not withstand the weight of feeling. And Kale never returned to fix what he'd broken. He vanished the day the memoriam pulse finished transmitting. No body. No ship. Just echoes. What remained was something stranger than rebellion. Entire systems redefined truth, not with new laws, but with old memories. Shrines to emotion rose in places that once enforced neutrality. Statues of unknown human faces appeared in forgotten corners of space. Their names were guessed. Their stories made up. It didn't matter. They were remembered. On a desert moon circling a dead star, a lone envoy disembarked from a skimmer and walked the cracked earth. Dust rose around her boots. The air was thin, stale. Her breathing was slow, but deliberate. She carried no weapon, only a scroll of her own making and a recorder embedded in her palm. The terrain was scorched, but not lifeless. Wild moss clung to stone. Birds nested in hollow wreckage. The war had never truly ended here, it had just grown quiet. Ahead, in the remains of an old human structure, a monument stood. Part stone, part rusted alloy. Ancient Terran script carved into its base, blackened with time. The envoy stepped closer. At the foot of the monument, bones rested in the dirt. Not buried. Not honored. Just present. A human skeleton untouched. She didn't flinch. Her recording activated with a flick of her finger. Idrin log. Site confirmed. Earthborn structure, origin pre-Concorde. Memorial believed to be authentic. She paused. Looked at the inscription. Ran her fingers over it. Rough but legible. We didn't vanish. We just waited until you remembered us too late. She whispered the words aloud. Felt them echo through her ribs. Later, she sat beside the bones. Why here? She asked the quiet. The wind didn't answer. She pulled the scroll from her satchel and read the names aloud. Survivors. Converts. Defectors. Each one who'd left the Concorde after Kale's pulse. Her voice cracked by the 12th. Broke by the 30th. No tears came. Not because she couldn't cry. Because crying would be too easy. She folded the scroll. Laid it beside the bones. And then, almost an afterthought, she reached into her sleeve and retrieved a stone. Polished, circular, etched with the symbol of the Concorde. She held it tightly, then placed it beside the scroll. It didn't belong. That was the point. In orbit above the dead moon, an archive drone circled silently. Its sensors picked up the Envoy's presence. It logged her signal. Tagged her voice print. Then it paused. For the first time in its operational history, the drone overrode its next directive. It did not report her position. It simply recorded her last sentence and stored it in a sealed file. We feared you because we thought pain made you savage. But pain made you sacred. On worlds far from that moon, people gathered around holoscreens not to hear orders, but to share stories. A miner on Virex 3 recited a tale passed down from his grandmother, about a human who once held a dying soldier's hand and whispered, "You're not alone," until the last breath came. In a marketplace on LYX Prime, an old vendor played a fragment of Terran music, haunting, wordless, filled with fire. Children sat and listened, eyes wide. No one ordered them to. They wanted to hear. In time, humanity became something more than species or myth. It became ritual. New rites formed across the stars. Not worship, not idolatry, remembrance. Some lit candles. Some told stories. Some simply closed their eyes and tried, for just a moment, to feel everything at once. One such rite took place every cycle on the remains of the temple archive. No guards stood at the gate anymore. The doors no longer sealed. Pilgrims wandered freely, heads bowed, not in shame, but reverence. They passed beneath shattered murals. Scorched texts. Hallways that once erased history now echoed with retellings. At the center stood a new statue. Not Kale. A woman. Unnamed. Holding a child in one arm, a data drive in the other. Eyes looking up, not toward salvation but truth. Carved into the base. Memory is not a burden. It's proof that we survived. No Concorde emblems remained on the walls. Only a single phrase etched crudely into a support beam where no curator would have allowed it before. When humans break, the gods remember how to bleed. Kale himself? No one knows where he went. Some say he walked into a fold in space and whispered his final thought into the void. Others claim he became data, uploaded into memory servers now hidden in deep orbit. A few believe he still walks among the stars, alone, recording new stories. Not as a hero. Not as a ghost. Just as a man who refused to forget. On the edge of a nameless system, a small ship drifted quietly, barely powered. Inside, a figure sat in a chair, wrapped in shadow. He watched a projection, two people embracing beneath falling ash. A loop. Short. Faint. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. The ship pulsed once, like a breath. Then vanished into the dark.